What's cracking, everyone? My name is Ryan, and today I'm going to be doing a top-of-the-line headphone comparison between the ZMF Caldera and the Meze Elite. Now, I have done videos covering each of these headphones individually, and I will put the links to those videos in the description down below. Also, probably somewhere in this video, you're going to find a link to go ahead and click on if you want to check that out. But this video is going to strictly focus on the similarities and the differences between these two, in case these are on your short bucket list of top-of-the-line headphones. So let's go ahead and get into that right now. All right, starting with the low end first, I will tell you that both of these headphones have excellent bass response. They have that natural planar bass that is deep, it's pleasant, it's detailed, it's tight. It is nothing that ever, in my opinion, gets out of control, unless the track has some out of control bass to it. But I want to give you a track example just to tell you the differences I hear between the two. With the Elite, there is a track called Miss Kane by Swindle. And this particular track is a jazz track, but it has a bass line that starts really at the very beginning and just lasts throughout. And it's that felt bass, as I was talking about, that really kind of sets forth and sets the tone at the beginning. When the rest of the track picks up and you hear all those other instruments, you don't lose out on the bass. And sometimes on some headphones, depending on how their frequency response is, you can lose out on that bass, and you can kind of wonder, where'd that go? And then instruments drop out, you hear the bass again. That doesn't really happen on the Elite or the Caldera for that matter. But the difference between the two is the Caldera is more impactful in the bass. It's definitely got a little bit more slam. It's got that ZMF type house sound, I would say, even though it's on a planar. And again, that it just has that impact nature to it. And there is a point on the track, it was around the 235 mark, where there's some drums and things that really kick in. And when I say kick, I mean kick on the Caldera, because I definitely felt that more on the Caldera from an impact standpoint than I did on the Elite. Now, both headphones sounded excellent on this track, especially on the low end. Neither of them lost out, but if you're looking for some impactful type bass, then I think the Caldera is where you're going to be headed towards. But if you, still appreciate the pleasant nature of bass and don't necessarily care about the impact quite as much, then definitely the Elite or both of them are going to be fantastic there. Now, if we move into the mid-range, I do want to talk about some of my favorite music, which is rock, alternative rock, hard rock, Rage Against the Machine, bands like that have a lot of guitars and a lot of crunchiness to them. Both of these headphones actually do that really well. And even, crunchiness of electric guitars, sometimes you can relate that to impact, but I felt both of these were pretty equal in that nature on how they sounded with guitars. Now, when we switch things over and we talk about drums, of course, that's going to be a little bit different, and the impact's going to be a little bit better on the Caldera for sure, and that it's got that, punchy nature to it with drums. But there is an actual track I want to talk about. It's not even a rock track, and that is Hey Now by London Grammar. The reason why I bring up this particular track is this is kind of going into that upper mid-range with vocals. Now, the track Hey Now, it's a very room-filling track with her vocals, and there's a lot of reverb and echo going on, and there's some bass that will kick in throughout this track. And in fact, around the 130 mark of that, there's definitely a part where that bass comes in, and with the Caldera, it is present. I mean, you definitely feel that, bass nature just hitting in, whereas the Elite, it's more of a smooth transition in. But the reason why I'm talking about this during the mid-range is because that upper mid-range is never lost. And in fact, on the Elite, what is very interesting is that you're going to hear this more as I talk about treble. The Elite really expands out, and it has really good stage and width. So does the Caldera. But the Elite, I feel like, just goes a little bit further. And with a track like Hey Now that is mixed that way and has that, expansive sound to it, it was a very unique listen on the Elite. Still got that from the Caldera, just perhaps a little bit further, like I said, on the Elite. And then, listening to other, type of bands that have lots of guitars and things going on, there is, if I go back to that track Swindle for a second here, okay? Miss Kane by Swindle. The reason why I'm going back to that track is because if you've ever played a violin or a cello or any kind of wood instrument that requires a bow, you're going to know what I mean, in that when they're playing those instruments, or when you're playing those instruments, you feel that bow just ripping across the strings. I felt that in that track on the Caldera, and that was such a unique experience because it just made me feel like I was there on that stage listening to them play that and just getting that sense of that sound and just really feeling like I was playing along with them. I don't know. It's just a very unique experience and something I enjoyed listening on the Caldera, and not saying it lost out on the Elite. It's just going back to that impact nature. And I relate that to kind of that mid-range for that sound that I was getting out of that, and that it kind of relates to even like drums and things like that as well. All right, so I don't get off track here. No pun intended. We're going to go ahead and talk about the treble lastly, of course. And what I will say about the treble between each of these two headphones, and I've already said this, is that there's good airiness, there's good detail, there's excellent stage out of both of these, but there's really good width with the Elite. And really, it also depends on the amp too, which I'll talk about in a minute. But with the Elite, when I listen to, again, some of those vocalist tracks, it just really expands out. But there's also really good instrument separation and detail. And I really want to bring up Go-Go Penguin with this one because I've been listening to their latest album and starting to get into their music a little bit more. I don't have a particular track to talk about here other than just they incorporate a lot of instruments, and it's very fast and speedy. And, you know, the transients and things that you're going to get out of each of these headphones will match up and pair up very well with that type of music, and you don't lose out on details. But what I will say about the Elite, ever so slightly, I think the details are a little bit more defined on the Elite, and I'm talking minute. So something I only probably would have heard because I was A-Bing them so much that it was just very unique. But I think that also goes back to the fact that the Caldera just has that impact. And what I mean by that is on something like the Elite, when you have that expanse to them, you know, instruments and things can, you know, be fast and transient and things like that, but they kind of roll off and into the next. Whereas with the Caldera, you know, you get some snappiness to it. And I remember talking about that during my video on the Caldera, and the instrument separation and things can seem a little bit quicker, right, on the Caldera, but I think on the Elite, it actually is just a tiny bit more of that detail, if that makes any sense. I kind of talked in a circle on that one. But there is another track I want to talk about, and that is Family by The Weeknd and Susanna Son. Now, this is a brand new track. I came across it. I stopped to listen because it's a vocal-focused track, and I'm a sucker for that. I love this track. It instantly caught me. And there are some big moments in this track. And one thing that is really unique when I A-B'd these two is, again, that big stage and width that I got out of the Elite. I got more echo. I got more reverb. Wasn't a ton more, but it was definitely enough that I noticed between the two was a very cool and unique listen between this and the Caldera. But the one thing I noticed on this track, and then I had to go back to other tracks to notice this as well, there's a moment in this track, I think it's around the 2-minute and 5-second mark, where both The Weeknd and Susanna just come to this moment where they both join in on the vocals, and it's a big moment in the track. On the Caldera, it almost had a little bit of harshness to it. I don't want to call it shout, just harshness, just because of the volume maybe I was listening on. Whereas on the Elite, I didn't feel it quite as much, or I actually didn't feel it really at all. And I think, again, that goes to the fact that it expands out so much. It doesn't have quite that wall stopping point as something like the Caldera does compared to the Elite, because like I said, this is not an intimate headphone. This is not an intimate headphone either, so don't mistake me for that. But it was just very unique on that track. And then I started going back and listening to other things and realizing that, yeah, you know, every so often if a track has it, there's going to be a little bit of harshness in that upper mid-range. But I think that's also kind of a ZMF thing. And that's where I think it's unique that ZMF was able to maintain some of their house sound on a planar. I think that's excellent. And, you know, some people are going to like that. Some people are not. It's going to depend on the track. For me, it's a trade-off for me because I love that house impactness of ZMFs. And for the Elite, you're going to be happy to know that, you know, it's just got that pleasant sound on the top end. Now, both listenings for these were done with their stock pads because I enjoy their stock pads the best anyway on the leather pads. And I just really enjoyed the listen of both headphones. And then to go into power requirements, I will say that the Caldera definitely is going to take a little bit more volume on the power than the Elite. So the Elite's going to be a little bit easier to power. Now, I didn't say easier to drive, because what I did find was when I listen to both these headphones on something like, we'll say, my IFI Go Bar or the Cayenne RU7 that I'm trying to do a review for right now, they sounded excellent on those portable dongle DAC solutions. But each of them lost out a little bit on the details, and definitely noticed on the Elite that I didn't feel that expanse quite as much on the stage as I did on a true desktop amp with power. Now, don't get me wrong though, that was still an excellent listen, and it sounded beautiful listening on a dongle DAC, even something like that, to where I was very impressed and happy at the same time that you could do that with these headphones. But when I threw these on my Liquid Platinum or my Cayenne IHA6, I mean, yeah, that's when I really got the details. That's when I really got the expandability of these headphones and noticed a lot more differences between the two. So, you know, just take that to note when it comes to the power requirements of either of these. All right. I think I have talked enough on these. You know, hopefully I've helped some of you if you've got these in your, bucket list, as I've said, of headphones. I think they're both excellent offerings. I want to send one final thank you to ZMF and to Meze for letting me borrow these headphones for so long and to get this final video out comparing the two of them. And hopefully, like I said, that helped you guys out. I want to thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, please smash that like button. And if you haven't done so already, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel because, well, the Cayenne RU7's around the corner, as well as a Can Jam video. I'm going to Can Jam actually tomorrow with my wife, Bree. If you see me there, say hi. All right, guys, I will see you in the next one.